Tax Title Services is out of California, but it actually got its start here in Louisiana. Back in 1999, one of our founders was involved with First American Title, and the parish of East Baton Rouge came to First American and said, hey, if we could outline, do you need, oh, thanks. Saying if we could, if you could outline a process that would allow us to get insurable title, the parish of East Baton Rouge is willing to work with you on that. If you just tell us how to create the model for that, we'll work with you. So back then, they created an ordinance model that would allow people to get title insurance if certain steps were made. So this is kind of where we got started, and that's why Louisiana is kind of home to us. That's where we started. We've been doing this for 15 years now in Louisiana, and we've been involved in many projects. For example, after the blight, we got very much involved in helping to restore properties back into service so they can be purchased. We did a lot with the blight. Has anybody here participated in any blight projects? Have you worked with anybody? You have? Okay. It was an interesting time. It was complicated because you would have people that had a property that was blighted, and then they would receive a road home grant. Has anybody heard of that? Okay, that's where you apparently, if your property was blighted, you'd get, I believe, it was 80% of the pre-Katrina value of the property. And so you'd get that, and then the homeowner would also get their insurance claim, and so they'd get both of those. And then unfortunately, instead of putting it back into their house and utilizing the resources that were given to them, they moved to Texas and bought a house. So that's why there were so many properties that were out there. We started working with the people in Orleans Parish, and it was as you know, as you get involved in different government entities, it takes a little navigation. We started working with let's see, Jackie Clarkson, Stacy Head, and Brenda Bro. These are names you might know if you're in Orleans Parish, and they really helped us allow to move forward on this. We had a partnership with them, and we restored several properties to Commerce. One of them, I can't remember. There was a historical church in the lower 9th Ward that was devastated, and we worked with Chase Bank to assemble all the properties, and Chase Bank then allowed a $20 million grant to be given to restore the church. So that's kind of what our mantra is. We're trying to take properties that are not normally easy to restore because they have inherent title problems, and Tax Title Services works with the taxing authority, they work with the owners, they work with the investors to try to help restore these properties. And title insurance obviously is just one small component, but it doesn't create an impetus to develop a property or redevelop a property if you don't have clear insurance behind it. So that's what we've been doing. We do not do a judicial foreclosure. We instead do noticing. What we do is we overnotice everything on the property, any statutory regulations, we try to exceed them so that by the time we've done our due process certification, you have marketable title. And when I say marketable title, we have nationwide underwriters that will insure over our product once we do it. And as I said, we've been doing it for several years and in several states. In Louisiana right now, there's with what Brian was talking about, there's a huge opportunity for investors like yourself to start getting these properties and moving them back into commerce. It's a great opportunity, and I think at this point, where Brian's involved with this, there's properties that if you add the title insurance, you can get something that's viable for yourself. That's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to get an understanding as to where the title insurance comes in and how it adds value to the property. So at this point, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Yes, sir.
With respect to the tax certificate sales, you guys provide insurance at work for clients who have acquired the title and can't get title insurance?
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting because sometimes you can go through the entire process. Just as an aside, in Arizona, where we work, for years they would accept a judicial foreclosure. As long as you met all the statutory requirements, you would get somebody to underwrite you for title insurance. Recently, certain companies, like for example Fidelity, are not insuring over them anymore because they still think it's too much of a risk. And that's what you have to think about as investors, is mitigating risk. And until you have insurable title, you always have a risk of challenge down the road. And that's what our company tries to mitigate. And when we saw this happening in Arizona, it was very interesting because for years everybody accepted it. It's a judicial foreclosure state, which means as long as an attorney files everything correctly, you're entitled to the property and you are able to get title insurance. All of a sudden, now that things have changed, in Arizona, there's no guarantee that you're going to get a quiet title by judicial foreclosure. So back to here, this is why we offer this service in Louisiana. We've been doing it for 15 years, and we've certified over 15,000 titles, actually closer to 20,000 titles. And in that entire time, we have not had to pay a single claim. So we have a very secure process for you. And we've had a couple of, in 2 occasions we made 2 business decisions to do a workout with people instead of taking it to court. So once again, we kind of consider ourselves a faster, cheaper, friendlier way of doing it. Instead of filing court actions, we work out with the people that are on title and ask them, you know, what can we do to make this go away? What can we do to perfect your interest and still move on with the procedure? So it's a much friendlier thing that we do, and that's why we haven't had any challenges, because we overkill the noticing. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. We, on occasion, will not only notify the property owner, we'll notify their relatives, we'll notify the people on either side of the house, so that we're sure that when we're finished, you have something that you can hang your hat on. It's even gotten to the point on some occasions where we would have a person call screaming at us saying, I was at Thanksgiving dinner and my aunt told me that you didn't pay your taxes and that's why you're losing your property. And That's right. You are losing your property because you didn't pay your taxes. It didn't go well at Thanksgiving dinner, but at least the person knew that they were properly notified and they had an opportunity to do something about it. So, yes, sir.
I just wanted to adjust the question back there a little bit. We've used you guys, and our sale would not have gone without you guys, and it's worked well in that context for us. And so I'm just saying it really has made a difference, because otherwise what we had was a vacant house that was a blighted property, and we would have had to sold it for possession price as opposed to retail price. And so in that context, it was a good investment.
Well, thanks for that. And that's what it's all about. You're trying to maximize your return on investment, and so that's what this does. It increases your investment and it increases your ability to resell the property. So that in a nutshell is what we're all about. And as I said earlier, if you have any specific questions, like for example, if you have a property, oops, I'm sorry, did I miss a? Okay, question over here?
I was just going to ask, in general, what would you say the cost for that curative work?
It varies. I would say if you stick it around $1,800 to $2,000 is a good is a good number to do. Now we also take into account if it's a if it's a $500,000 property, obviously there's going to be a little bit more than that. But most of the properties that you deal with, you can look at that $1,800 to $2,000 range. Any other questions? Tom? I'm sorry. We do most states. Yeah, there's a few states we don't do. But, and if there is a need and if there's prevailing issues that would allow us to, we'd be able to we would go into other states. But this is pretty much where we cover. And in addition, sometimes we actually do the noticing for the taxing authorities, so that when they sell to their constituents, then they have an insurable process as well. So we're just all about mitigating risk. Yes, sir.
So can you just explain a little bit about how it's an alternative to a quiet title action? Sometimes people are, this is a quiet title action, this is a viable alternative to it, so maybe the differences between the two.
Sure.
Why this works so much better, particularly for tax.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, there's two ways of doing it. You follow a judicial you do a judicial process with an attorney, and you go to court and you sit there with across the aisle from an adversarial party, and you try to disenfranchise them from their property, and it's all done in court. You're paying attorneys, and it becomes a kind of a adversarial process. What we do is, which is different, and it makes it easier, is we do workouts with everybody that's involved. Instead of dragging somebody in court where you have to retain attorneys, we sit down with the affected parties and we say, do you really want this? If you want this, then you can pay the back taxes right now. If you don't want this, hey, would you take a $500 or $1,000 for a quick claim deed and allow us to move on? So it's more interactive than sitting across the aisle from somebody and trying to make sure your attorney does better than the attorney next to you. So we say it's friendlier. I mean, there's nothing, it's hard to use the word friendly when you're talking about a foreclosure, but we try to make it friendlier, or more interactive, shall we say. And it's good for the investor as well, because they know that we have engaged every single person that is involved in this action, as opposed to a blanket noticing, and if you don't show up for court, you're not going to get it. So that's pretty much how our service works.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you talk, I'm sorry, I had to step out a second here, but did you talk about how you got the start with the NOLA, and it was really basically a decision that was driven by investors like this? And 15 years is a decent amount of time to be in the real industry.
Yeah, I mean, people, people kept saying that, you know, I was doing judicial foreclosures in Arizona, and people were saying there must be a better way of doing this. And I ran into a gentleman that was working at First American Title, and we started to discuss this whole situation. And they were already doing it in a limited basis, and we found out that that was just a better way of working it. So instead of migrating to that adversarial side, we decided to do a collaborative side. So we feel that what we're doing is actually collaborating with the people that have had the problem. Sometimes they end up getting the property back because of our help, because in many cases they didn't know that they were in arrears, and we brought that to their attention, so they saved their property. So it's like I said, that's the friendlier aspect of it. Anything else?
Well, I was going to ask, I'm from California.
Sure.
And not part of the market, but does California do these traditional lien sales like we do here in Louisiana?
California is a tax deed state. They don't sell tax liens. They'll auction off the property, and if you do that process, then you're going to own the whole property, 100%.
You see that changing in the landscape down the road?
I'm not sure, but we still have a land insurance problem in California. There's a 1-year right of challenge. So even if you become the winning bidder today, there's a 1-year right of challenge, which the previous owner or interest holders will come back and challenge the sale of the property, and more than likely they will win. We can start a process of qualifying the property for title insurance the day that you're a winning bidder at the sale, eliminated the 1-year right of challenge, and our process average is 45 to 60 days. So same thing.
In California, they have enabling statute ever since Capital Asset Research did it back in the day. They have enabling statute to be able to sell tax liens. And they actually do in one school district, in Los Angeles School District, but they sell them both through formally to JP Morgan, and that contract is not with the Tower Company. But, so they do sell them, but just in an RFP type process in one particular school district. The rest of the state could. It'd be great if there's anybody here that could help us out to do that. That's one of the other places that we're looking at. I'm sure everybody here would benefit from that. So always happy to talk about it. But they do. There is a history of it. As you were saying, the rest of the state just sells it.
Yeah, the platform mainly uses bid for assets. It's an auction.
And the volume is very low. Bid for assets. The volume is very low.
Okay, at this point, is there any other questions? Okay, thank you for your time, appreciate it.